Little girl lost at county fair, 1989 at 23 years on. Her father finds a name etched inside a pawn shop harmonica and freezes. Before we dive in, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comments where you're tuning in from. Your support helps us create more deep and gripping stories just for you. There's more to come. The rain had been falling steadily since dawn, soft and persistent, like it knew better than to intrude loudly on a quiet day in Haleton, Oregon. It clung to the sidewalks in thin silver sheets, made the rusted sign of Ray's Resale and pawn drip and sway, and brought with it the kind of chill that got into a man's bones if he stood still too long. Eli Mercer didn't mind the rain anymore. At 51, divorced and quietly fading into the rhythm of small-town routine, he preferred it to sunshine. The rain didn't pretend to cheer you up. He stepped inside the pawn shop mostly to get out of the weather. The bell above the door gave a sad little jingle, and the place smelled like old books, motor oil, and forgotten dreams. It was dim inside. Rows of guitars with snapped strings, televisions with fading screens, a cracked violin that hadn't been tuned in years. He nodded at the man behind the counter. Ray's nephew. Maybe? Eli wasn't sure anymore who ran the place. Didn't matter. He wasn't looking for anything in particular. He never was. His boots echoed across the warped wooden floor as he wandered between shelves, past a display of pocket knives, costume jewelry, dusty binoculars. His eyes landed on a glass case by the wall. Musical instruments. A trumpet missing a valve. A scratched-up tambourine. And then, a harmonica. Small, silver, worn. But not from neglect. No, from use. The kind of wear that came from being loved. Eli squinted closer, leaned in. There was something etched faintly along the side. He read it once. Then again. LEM. His heart skipped, then pounded hard against his ribs. He reached into the case with slow, trembling fingers, motioned to the clerk. "Can I see that harmonica?" The kid shrugged, unlocked the case, and handed it to him. Eli turned it over in his palm. The weight of it nearly buckled him. LEM. The letters were shallow, carved by an unsteady hand, but they were there, just like the one he'd given her. He'd saved up for it. $50 back then. Bought it from a fair vendor because she'd fallen in love with the sound. She played it all day. She even took it to the carousel with her, that last ride before everything. He squeezed his eyes shut. The memory clawed its way to the surface. The squeal of laughter. The pink ribbon in her hair. The flash of a red balloon. And then nothing. Just the endless loop of running, shouting, praying as the fair shut down and the lights dimmed and the crowd thinned. That harmonica had never been found. Not in the grass. Not in the lost and found. Not in her tiny, empty hand. Until now. Where'd you get this? Eli's voice cracked, sharp with something between dread and hope. The clerk shrugged. Came in with a bunch of old music stuff last week. Some guy, maybe early 30s. Didn't leave a name. Eli stared at the harmonica. Could it be? After 23 years? Or was this some cosmic cruelty? A trick of coincidence? A cruel joke from the universe? He pulled out his wallet and laid down a 20 and 2 10s. I'll take it. It had been one of those sticky August afternoons when the sun scorched the tops of shoulders and turned the air heavy with the smells of popcorn, engine grease, and cotton candy. The 1989 Haleton County Fair buzzed with its usual hum. Children's laughter, cheap carnival music, the creak and groan of rides that probably should have been retired 10 years earlier. Eli Mercer remembered wiping sweat off his brow as he adjusted the fuse on a stubborn generator behind the lemonade stand. His buddy, Rick Dawson, had flagged him down 10 minutes earlier, frantic, when the power cut out mid-blend during the rush. "Just 2 minutes, hon," Eli had said to Mara, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Elena wants to go on the carousel next. I'll be right there." Mara had nodded, distracted, cradling her purse like it was a fragile bird, her eyes darting after their 6-year-old daughter weaving between legs and food carts with her harmonica clutched in one hand and a balloon string in the other. Mara had never liked the fair. Too many people. Too many noises. She'd grown up with different fears. Fears that made her watch crowds the way some people watch dark alleyways. "Stay close to Mommy, Ellie," she called, voice tight. The girl had waved, half listening, her blonde curls bouncing as she skipped toward the carousel platform. Eli had crouched by the generator, fingers smudged with oil, grunting as he twisted a screwdriver into the fuse box. When a motor kicked back to life, he wiped his hands on his jeans and glanced toward the carousel. Elena wasn't there. At first, he thought she'd wandered to a different ride. Maybe the spinning teacups. Maybe she was waiting in line. But when he jogged over, Mara's panicked face met him halfway. "She's gone," Mara said breathlessly, clutching his arm. "She was right here. She was right here, Eli." They called her name, over and over. Elena. Ellie. They ran through booths, past screaming rides, into the petting zoo. The harmonica's trill was nowhere to be heard. By dusk, the fairgrounds had been cordoned off with yellow tape. A deputy took statements. A woman in a sun hat said she thought she saw a man in a brown jacket leading a little girl away by the hand, but she hadn't thought much of it. "Could have been her dad," she said, squinting. "I don't know." The search extended into the woods behind the fairgrounds. Dogs sniffed out old picnic wrappers and beer cans, but found no trace of Elena. No ribbon. No harmonica. No balloon string. Just a vanishing. Eli hadn't stopped shaking for 2 days. Mara spiraled. First came the blaming, the angry silences, the sharp words. Then the silence grew thicker, colder. A wedge pressed between them. The grief, the helplessness, the agony of what if. The case stayed open for 6 months, then inactive. No suspects. No body. No ransom. Just a line in a file, and a box in their garage marked Elena, age 6, school drawings, tiny sneakers, and a missing harmonica. Years passed, but Eli never let himself believe she was dead. He couldn't. The image of her laughing, blowing that harmonica as she spun on the carousel, stayed lodged behind his ribs. Even when Mara left him in '94, unable to carry the weight anymore, even when the house emptied and the birthday candles stopped getting lit, he never let go of the hope that one day something would come back. Eli didn't sleep that night. The harmonica sat on the kitchen table, still wrapped in its brown pawn shop paper, but partially unwrapped, like it might breathe if left exposed too long. The house creaked with the wind outside, the kind of restless groaning only old wood and memory can make. He sat hunched in a worn kitchen chair, arms wrapped around his ribs, as if to keep himself from breaking open. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her. Not the abstract image of her he'd grown used to over the years, but clear now, vivid. Elena at 6 years old, spinning around the fair with her balloon and harmonica, that same damn harmonica, squealing with laughter. He reached for his phone. He hadn't dialed Mara's number in years. Not since her wedding invitation had arrived with a glossy photo of her and her new husband on a beach somewhere warm, smiling like grief had been surgically removed. She answered after the third ring. "Eli." He was quiet for a moment. "Hey, sorry. I know it's late." A pause. "What's going on?" "I found something," he said, voice taut. "A harmonica. At a pawn shop on 3rd. It's hers, Mara. It's Ellie's. It has her name on it." The silence that followed stretched out long and brittle. "You're sure?" she finally asked, but her tone wasn't curious. It was tired. Protective. "Yes. It's the one. It has to be. The same etching. Ellie M. You remember. I gave it to her that morning." Another long pause. Then, "Eli, don't do this. She could be alive. You don't know that." He could hear someone else in the background, murmuring. Her new husband, probably. Life had moved on for her. It never had for him. "I'm sorry," Mara said, softer now, "but I can't go back there." "I won't. You need to let her rest. She might not be gone." Eli said, a hard edge in his voice. "What if someone took her? What if she's out there? And this harmonica is the first clue in 23 years. Or it's a coincidence," Mara whispered. "And it'll kill you to hope again." She hung up. Eli stared at the phone, rage and sorrow crashing against each other behind his ribs. The next morning, he walked back to Ray's Resale and Pawn before the neon open sign had finished flickering on. The man behind the counter, different from the clerk yesterday, looked up from his newspaper. "You the one who bought the harmonica?" Eli nodded. "Who brought it in?" The man scratched his beard. "Don't know his name. Paid in cash. Clean-cut guy, maybe mid-30s. Wore a gray coat, I think. Looked like a traveling type, quiet." "Did he say where he got it?" "No. Just dropped it off with some old records in a guitar case. Said he needed to lighten his load. That was it." Eli left with more questions than answers. At home, he opened his laptop and started digging. He searched for reports of missing children's, Oregon, 1980s to early 90s. He trawled forums and databases, rabbit holes upon rabbit holes, pages of unsolved cases, tiny, grainy photos of girls that could have been Ellie, none quite right. He downloaded pawn shop directories, checked legal resale listings, scanned eBay, Etsy, even Reddit. Nothing. But he couldn't stop. It was like a switch had flipped. After years of silence, something in the universe had stirred, and he couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than coincidence. By the following Thursday, Eli sat across from Danny Rivas in the back booth of a faded diner off Route 12, nursing a bitter coffee and wringing his calloused hands. The PI arrived exactly on time. Tall, lean, late 30s, dark hair pulled back in a no-nonsense braid. She wore a charcoal blazer over a weatherproof vest, the kind that made you wonder if there was a badge or a sidearm tucked somewhere beneath it. She dropped into the seat across from him and didn't smile. "Mr. Mercer, you said it was urgent." Eli nodded. "It is. I'm not sure how to explain this without sounding crazy. I've worked missing persons, inheritance fraud, stalker cases, and one guy who faked his own death and lived in a treehouse in Tillamook. I don't rattle easy." Eli slid the harmonica across the table like it was an artifact. "This belonged to my daughter, Elena. She disappeared in '89 from the Benton County Fair." Danny's eyes flicked over it with polite disinterest at first, then paused. She picked it up, examined the faint engraving. "L.E.M.," she read aloud. "That her nickname?" He nodded. "I gave her that harmonica the morning she vanished." "How old was she?" 6. His voice cracked. "We searched everywhere. It went cold after 6 months. They never found her, or a body, or anything." Danny looked at him for a long moment. "You think this is hers?" "I know it is." She leaned back. "How did it end up in your hands?" He told her about the pawn shop, the vague description of the seller, and the late-night spiral into old missing persons reports. Danny stayed quiet, processing. "Most cold cases have dead ends for a reason, Mr. Mercer. But this harmonica, it's recent." Eli nodded. "They said it was brought in 2 weeks ago. That's what got me." "Why now?" "After 23 years. After a pause, Danny nodded. "All right, I'll bite." Together, they returned to raise resale and pawn. The owner, a little more wary this time, glanced between Eli and Danny as they entered. Danny flashed a card. "Private investigator. I'd like to speak with you about an item recently brought in." The man sighed. "The harmonica again?" "Yes," Danny said. "I need to see your security footage from a day it was pawned." He hesitated. "That's not something we usually—" "I can get a warrant," she interrupted calmly. "But I'd rather not waste the time." That did it. Within minutes, they were in a dusty back office, the flickering monitor pulling up a grainy feed from 2 weeks ago. "There," Eli said suddenly, leaning forward. "That's him." The footage showed a man, late 30s, short brown hair, neat clothes, gray coat, placing items on the counter. The harmonica was one of them, visible for just a second. No obvious rush, no interaction that raised alarms. He signed something, pocketed cash, and left. "No ID?" Danny asked. "Nope," the shop owner said. "We don't require it under $50. Danny paused the video. The man's face wasn't fully clear, but distinct enough. She snapped a photo of the screen with her phone. "I'll run facial recognition. See if we can match him. Might be nothing," she added, "but this is definitely a lead." Back at Danny's office, a narrow second-floor walk-up above a shuttered bakery. She dimmed the lights and connected her laptop to a small monitor mounted to the wall. Eli stood beside her, arms crossed tightly over his chest, as she pulled up the paused frame from the pawn shop footage. The man's face was partially angled, but clearer now after Danny used a suite of video enhancement software. She froze the image at a precise second, right when the man turned to accept the cash. "There," she said, zooming in. "Wrist." Eli leaned in. The man's left wrist bore a faint tattoo, an outline of a crescent moon and 3 initials beneath it, J-E-W. Danny nodded. "Distinct enough. Most people don't ink their initials unless they mean something." She moved quickly, fingers flying over the keyboard, pulling up her private investigation software. "Let's try matching facial features. Bone structure, eye-spacing ears." Eli watched in silence as an algorithm processed dozens, then hundreds of possible matches from social media profiles, criminal records, and public databases. After several tense minutes, a face popped up, a little older, a beard now, but the bone structure matched. Josh Weller, 32. Born in Portland, currently living in Salem. Formerly employed at a shipping company. No criminal record. Recently laid off. Could be him, Danny said. I'll confirm with some deeper digging, but I'd bet good money. Weller, Eli repeated. I don't know the name. Danny scrolled further down Josh's profile. Not much was public. Just a few pictures, old posts, and one tag family photo from 2 years ago. A birthday gathering. A smiling young woman, maybe late 20s, sitting next to Josh. Dark blonde hair, long, slightly curled. Brown eyes. The caption read, Family dinner with the best sis in the world, Elena Weller Yellow Art. Eli froze. His breath caught. The coffee in his stomach turned sour. Elena, he whispered. Yeah, Danny said slowly. She clicked on the tag. The woman's profile was locked down, barely anything visible except for a small header. Elena Weller, 29. Born, October 4th, 1983. Eli sank into the chair behind him. That's the right birth year. The timing fits. Danny turned to him. Same name, close age, lived in Oregon all this time. That's not a coincidence. Eli stared at the screen. She looks like her. I mean, older, but the eyes, the smile. He trailed off, then suddenly stood and started pacing. But how? How could she be alive all this time? And living under someone else's name? Danny was already opening a new browser tab, digging into archived news articles and family records. It's possible she was adopted, or taken in by someone who changed her identity. Eli's voice rose. But why wouldn't she remember? Or come back? Why wouldn't you try to find us? Danny looked up. That's what we're going to find out. But let's go carefully, Eli. If this is your daughter, and I'm not saying it is, not yet, we don't know what kind of life she's lived, what she's been told. Eli's fingers trembled as he stared at the photo of the smiling woman with the soft brown eyes. She's alive, he whispered. She's alive, and she doesn't even know who she is. Danny's voice was steady. Then it's time we found out why. The office was quiet, save for the low hum of Danny's laptop. She scrolled through the sparse details on Elena Weller's profile, her eyes narrowing. No baby pictures, she murmured. That's strange. Nothing before, age 6, maybe 7. She clicked through old posts. The earliest image was a school portrait, first grade, judging by the missing front teeth and awkward smile. Eli sat across from her, leaning forward like he might fall into the screen. Nothing before that. Danny shook her head. No family pics from infancy. No hospital photos. No parents tagging her in old memories. Everything starts mid-childhood, and even then, it's spotty. You see that? She pointed to the About section. Born 1983, just like your Elena. But no mention of where. Eli swallowed hard. That's not right. That's not how families post about their kids. Danny tapped on a recent update. A photo of the young woman standing behind the register of a cozy-looking bookstore, the kind with creaky wood floors and hand-lettered signs. Riverbend Books, Moscow, Idaho, Danny read. Eli's voice cracked. I have to go. Danny turned to him, brows furrowed. No, not yet. You can't just show up there, Eli. He stood abruptly, pacing again like he had the day before. She's my daughter. If there's even the smallest chance, if there's any chance, she deserves to know. I deserve answers. Danny kept her tone even. I get that. I really do. But you don't know what she's been told about her past. If someone took her, they could have made her believe anything. That her parents abandoned her. That they're dead. People who steal children don't usually tell the truth. Eli rubbed his eyes with the heel of his hand. What if she doesn't even remember me? She might not, Danny said gently. But barging in her life could scare her off, or worse, drive her into the arms of whoever raised her. He turned to her, jaw tight. What do you suggest? I sit here and wait for someone else to fix it. Wait another 23 years. Danny didn't answer right away. She just looked at him, really looked at him. The hollowed-out eyes, the tired shoulders, the desperation bleeding through every gesture. No, she said finally. You don't wait. But you don't go in blind, either. She turned back to the screen. Let me make a few calls. See if we can confirm anything from official records. Medical history, school transfers. If she is Elena Mercer, there'll be holes in her paper trail. Eli's voice was quieter now, steadier. What if there aren't? Danny looked at him. Then, we're chasing a ghost. But my gut says we're not. He nodded, slowly, his eyes drifting back to the image on the screen. Elena Weller, laughing as she helped the child pick out a book. She always loved stories, he whispered. She used to make me read to her every night before bed, even when she couldn't keep her eyes open. Danny rose and began packing her bag. If you're going to Idaho, I'm coming with you. And we're doing this smart. No sudden confrontations, no accusations. We observe, we verify. Then, if the pieces still fit, you talk to her. Eli met her gaze. Deal. The air in Moscow, Idaho had a crispness to it, touched with pine and a hint of coming rain. Eli stepped out of the rental car and looked across the quiet street at the small storefront with the green awning and hand-painted sign, Riverbend Books. A bell jingled softly above the door as he and Danny stepped inside. It was warm, cozy. The scent of old paper, coffee, and sandalwood wrapped around him like a memory. Shelves stretched to the ceiling, and a cat snoozed on a window seat beside a stack of travel memoirs. Behind the register stood a woman, mid-20s, long chestnut hair pulled into a loose braid. Her sleeves were rolled up, her hands flipping through a clipboard. She looked up and smiled, warm, polite, the way you'd expect from a small-town bookseller. Hey there, she said. Let me know if you need help finding anything. Eli opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He stared. Her face, the shape of her nose, her eyes, green, just like her mother's. His hand gripped the edge of a nearby shelf for support. She turned slightly and began unpacking a box of new arrivals, humming quietly to herself as she worked. Eli froze. The melody, soft, simple, drifted through the space like a ghost. It was the lullaby, the one he used to play on her harmonica, the tune he'd made up on the spot one night when she couldn't sleep. She made him play it every night for a year. He took a shaky step forward, his voice barely a whisper. Ellie. Before he could say more, Danny grabbed his arm and pulled him back between the shelves. Her voice was low and firm. Eli, stop. He turned to her, eyes wide. She's humming it. The song. That can't be a coincidence. But this isn't the place. We don't know what she's been told, how she's been raised. You approach her now, emotional like this, you'll scare her. Or worse, push her back into the arms of whoever raised her. Eli's fists clenched. I can't just walk away again. You're not, she said. We're here. We're close. But this has to be done right. She peered out from behind the shelf, watching as Elena, if it was her, continued shelving books, oblivious to the emotional earthquake happening just feet away. We find out more. Talk to the neighbors, the store owner, anyone who's known her longer than 20 years. We piece together her history. If she was taken, there'll be signs. You said it yourself. No baby photos. No real timeline before age 6. That's not nothing. Eli exhaled, his breath shaky. I don't know how to be in the same room as her and not tell her who I am. You do it because she might need time to understand who she is, Danny said. You owe her that much. He nodded slowly, forcing himself to look away from the register. The bookstore cat patted over, rubbing against his leg as if sensing the storm beneath his skin. He knelt to pet it, grounding himself in the simple contact. The next morning, Eli stood in front of Riverbend Books, clutching 2 paper cups from the cafe down the street. Danny leaned against the lamppost beside him, arms crossed, eyes scanning the sleepy street. You sure you're up for this? She asked. Eli nodded. If there's even the slightest chance, I have to know. Inside, Elena was at the register again, flipping through inventory receipts and sipping from her thermos. Eli approached slowly. Morning, he said with practiced casualness. Thought you might want some coffee. Local roast. She looked up, surprised but not alarmed. That's very kind. I won't say no to caffeine. He handed her the cup, and their fingers brushed briefly. She smiled politely and took a sip before setting the cup aside. Danny browsed the shelves, pretending to examine a true crime book, her phone ready. 15 minutes later, the cup and straw sat unattended on the counter as Elena disappeared into the back room. Eli slid it into the bag Danny carried. No words were exchanged. They both knew what came next. The DNA results came back faster than either expected. The lab was expensive and discreet, and Danny had paid extra for speed. The report appeared on her laptop 2 days later in their motel room, a sterile PDF with 2 names at the top. Eli Mercer, Elena Weller. Probability of paternity, 99.98%. Eli sat motionless for a long time, staring at the screen as if it might morph into something else. He breathed out, but it wasn't relief. It was weight, the weight of certainty, of truth finally breaking through the fog after 23 years of silence. "She's my daughter," he whispered. "She's really my Ellie." Danny closed the laptop gently. Now we find out why she doesn't know that. They returned to the bookstore that afternoon. This time, Eli's hand shook as he gripped a paperback he pretended to skim. When Elena looked up, he forced a smile and stepped closer. "Mind if I ask you something personal?" She tilted her head. "Depends how personal. Your childhood. You ever remember anything before age 6? The color drained slightly from her face. She set her pen down. "What? I don't know," Eli said, choosing his words. "I had a friend. She always said her memories didn't start until 6 or 7. It made her wonder." Elena looked down. Her voice dropped. "I don't remember much. Just flashes. Water. A fairground. Maybe. I don't know if it's real or dreams. My parents never talk about it. They say it was a rough time." "Do you remember a song?" he asked softly. "A lullaby. Hush now, little light." She froze, eyes wide. Her lips parted slightly, and for a moment, the girl behind the counter looked like a child who'd been told something forbidden. Sometimes I hum it. I don't know where it came from," she admitted, her voice barely audible. "It's just always been there." Eli's chest ached. He wanted to tell her, to reach across the counter, to say her real name, to give her back the years she lost. But Danny's warning echoed in his mind. Don't give her the truth until she's ready to ask for it. So instead, he smiled sadly and nodded. "Funny how some things stay with us, huh?" Elena gave a faint, uncertain smile. "Yeah, weird, isn't it?" Behind him, Danny watched silently, her arms folded tight across her chest. She knew what was coming. The question wasn't if the truth would unravel. It was how much damage it would do when it did. The next day, the rain had returned, light but persistent, misting the edges of the Idaho town like a veil. Eli stood across the street from Riverbend Books for a long time before walking in. Danny didn't come. She had said, "It has to be you." Elena was behind the counter again, same navy cardigan, same quiet focus. But when she saw Eli, something shifted in her eyes. Recognition, maybe, or wariness. "I didn't expect you back so soon," she said. "I need to tell you something," he said quietly. "I know it'll sound strange, maybe even impossible, but I need you to hear me out." She hesitated. "Okay." He took a breath. "My name is Eli Mercer. I used to live in Oregon. I had a daughter named Elena. We called her Ellie. She disappeared from the county fair in 1989. She was 6. Her face began to pale, but she didn't interrupt. Her arms crossed, defensive, guarded. She had a harmonica," he continued. "I gave it to her that morning. It had her name on it. A few weeks ago, I found that same harmonica in a pawn shop. Your brother sold it." Elena stared at him like the air had thinned. "That's not. I don't know what you're talking about." "I had a DNA test run," Eli said softly. "You are my daughter, Elena. You're Ellie." Her mouth opened, but no sound came. Then a step back. Then 2. "My parents told me I was adopted," she said shakily. "From a closed orphanage in Utah. They didn't have records." Eli nodded. "I believe that's what they told you. But that's not the truth." "No," she shook her head. "No, this isn't happening. Elena, don't call me that," she snapped, her voice trembling. "My name is Elena Weller. I have a life. A family. I don't remember anything before I was 6, but that doesn't mean I was stolen. I'm not trying to take anything away from you," Eli said, his voice tight with emotion. "But I've lived without you for 23 years. I've gone to sleep every night with your face in my head and no answers. I just want you to know who you really are." Tears welled in her eyes, but she turned away. "You need to leave." "I just want." "Please," she said, her voice cracking. "I don't know what this is or what game you're playing, but you need to go." Eli stood there for a moment longer, heart hammering against his ribs. Then, quietly, he said, "I'll go. But I'm not lying to you. I never have." And with that, he walked out, the doorbell chime a lonely echo behind him. Outside, Danny waited in the car, watching him approach with hollow eyes. She didn't believe you, she guessed. She couldn't, Eli murmured. Not yet. He looked back at the bookstore. Through the window, Elena sat behind the counter, still and trembling, her hands gripping the sides of the chair like the world had tilted beneath her. She's going to remember, he said, more to himself than anyone else. It's in there somewhere. The song. The harmonica. Her name. Danny said nothing. She just drove, the rain drumming soft and steady on the windshield, like a lullaby half forgotten. Back at the motel, Eli sat on the edge of the bed, shoulders hunched forward, staring at nothing. Danny was at the desk with her laptop, her expression tight with concentration as she clicked through layers of online archives and public databases. I don't think she's sleeping tonight, Eli murmured. She shouldn't have to, Danny replied, not looking up. She deserves the truth. And you deserve to know who took it from you. She paused, eyes narrowing. I dug into the Wellers. Carl and Denise. Moved to Idaho in '91. Before that, they lived in Utah. Church-going, conservative, fostered 2 kids briefly before Elena. On the surface, squeaky clean. Eli rubbed his eyes. What about the adoption? That's where it gets murky. She turned the screen toward him. They filed for a private adoption in '91. Closed records. It's listed as female child, approximate age 7. But no agency name, no court order, no parental surrender, just a custody transfer filed in a backwater county clerk's office. Eli frowned. Is that even legal? It was legal enough, barely. In the late '80s and early '90s, private adoptions were like the Wild West in some states. Loopholes everywhere. If someone wanted to disappear with a child and reinvent the paperwork, they could, especially if they had help. She clicked through another file. There's more. Carl Weller was employed by a traveling church ministry back in '89. You know where they were that summer. Eli's breath caught. Don't say Oregon. Benton County Fairgrounds, Danny said grimly. August 12th. Same weekend Elena disappeared. Eli gripped the edge of the table. So he was there. And left the state days later. No formal report. No questions asked. Changed his address within 2 weeks. That's not nothing. They took her, Eli whispered. Or found her and never tried to return her. We can't prove that yet, Danny cautioned. Not in a court. But it sure as hell doesn't look right. Eli stood up, pacing. What kind of people take a child and just build a lie around her whole life? Teach her to forget. Did she even know she was missing? She probably didn't, Danny said. Most kids that age, they forget fast if there's trauma. And if the new narrative is soft enough, constant enough, it becomes truth, especially if no one tells them otherwise. Eli clenched his fists. She deserves to know. She needs to know. Danny gave a slow nod. We need to be smart about this. If the Wellers are hiding something, confronting them outright could make things worse. They could shut down, or worse, lawyer up, or turn Elena against you permanently. Eli's jaw flexed. So what do? We dig deeper, she said. I'll look for any connections between the Wellers and law enforcement from back then. Any signs of collusion. You give her time. Let this crack widen on its own. Eli stared out the motel window. Beyond the parking lot, the town looked peaceful, ordinary. But now, to him, it throbbed with secrets. She used to laugh all the time, he said suddenly, even in her sleep, like the world was full of music no one else could hear. Danny turned to look at him. Maybe she just needs someone to remind her of the tune. The Weller house stood at the edge of a cul-de-sac in Meridian. Modest, vinyl siding, wind chimes on the porch. From the outside, it looked like any other quiet suburban home. Danny parked across the street and watched it for several minutes before finally stepping out. She wasn't here to kick in doors. Not yet. Josh Weller answered after 2 knocks. His tattooed wrist, the same one from the pawn shop footage, was exposed as he held the door. Can I help you? She gave him a warm, practiced smile. Hi, I'm Danny. I'm actually doing some research on closed adoptions for a historical piece. I heard you might have a personal story. Josh squinted. About Elena? Danny tilted her head. That's right. He hesitated. You're a reporter? No, she said, her voice calm. Private researcher. Just trying to understand stories like yours. The ones that never get told. Josh rubbed the back of his neck. I don't know how much I can say. Danny stepped in gently. Whatever you're comfortable with. I'm not here to cause trouble. Just clarity. He stepped back and let her inside. The house smelled like vanilla candles and old carpet. Family photos lined the walls. Josh as a teen, Carl and Denise smiling stiffly, Elena smiling with them in later years. Always post 6 years old. Always just a bit posed. Josh sat on the edge of the couch. You want to know how she got here, don't you? Danny nodded. My dad found her. That's what he told us. Said she was crying at this gas station in the middle of nowhere, Oregon, I think. Said no one else was around. No cops. No staff. Just this little girl in overalls, hugging a backpack and sobbing. He stared at the coffee table, jaw tight. He brought her home. Told Mom she'd been abandoned. Said if we called the police, she'd end up in foster care, bounced around. They didn't trust the system. Danny stayed quiet, letting the pause stretch. Josh looked up. They said she didn't remember much. Just her name. Elena. My dad told us God sent her to us. Did you believe it? Danny asked softly. I was 8. Of course I did. She glanced down at her phone, recording. And later, Josh exhaled. I started asking questions in my 20s. She never had a birth certificate. No hospital records. No baby photos. Every time I asked, Dad shut it down. Mom would cry. I figured they had their reasons. Or maybe they were just scared. He met Danny's eyes. But I knew. I knew it was wrong. Is that why you pawned the harmonica? She asked. His expression shifted. She found it in an old box and freaked out. Said it gave her nightmares. Said she saw fire and lights and a crowd. She asked me to get rid of it. I didn't think much of it until now. Danny leaned forward. Josh, this girl, Elena, she had a father. He's been searching for her for 23 years. Josh swallowed hard. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. You just helped cover it up, she said quietly. And now you're helping break it open. Josh closed his eyes. What happens to them? My parents. That depends, Danny said, on what else comes out. But this, what you just told me, it's going to matter. A lot. She ended the recording and stood up. Thank you, she added, for not slamming the door. Josh didn't look up. Tell her I'm sorry. Outside, the wind picked up. Danny slid into the driver's seat and hit send on the audio file. Eli needed to hear it. The cracks were finally widening, and the whole story was starting to fall through. The sound of the recorder clicking off lingered in Danny's mind as she drove back to the motel. She replayed Josh's confession a dozen times before forwarding it to the county sheriff's office in Marion County, Oregon, the jurisdiction where Elena Mercer disappeared in 1989. By morning, she was fielding calls from 3 different investigators and 1 deputy district attorney. Within 48 hours, the case was officially reopened. Eli sat frozen at the edge of the motel bed, the harmonica still in his hands, thumb brushing over the faint letters, LEM. His face had been pale for hours, ever since Danny walked in and played him Josh's recorded words. He'd barely spoken since. It's her, he finally whispered. I knew. God help me, I knew. By the next afternoon, the Weller home was swarming with plainclothes investigators. Carl Weller didn't say a word when they knocked. His lawyer answered for him. Denise Weller, however, cracked within 20 minutes of questioning. She sat in her kitchen, trembling hands wrapped around a chipped mug, her face drawn with years of guilt. Her voice, when it came, was barely audible. I told him, she murmured. I told Carl we had to go to the police. But he said we couldn't, that we'd be charged, that they'd take her from us, and God knows where she'd end up. He said we were saving her. And you believe that? One of the detectives asked. No, she whispered, eyes filling. But I was too scared to fight him. I didn't want to lose her either. Legal complexities flooded the system like a rising tide. The Mercer case had long since gone cold. Crucial records had vanished, and laws had changed. Oregon's statute of limitations on certain kidnapping charges had expired. Other charges, like unlawful custodial interference, were technically prosecutable, but fragile. And most damning, Elena had lived with the Wellers for over 2 decades, without outward abuse or neglect. Still, the lie had cost a man his daughter, and a girl her entire identity. Eli watched the press conference from his motel room, alone. The sheriff's office confirmed they were investigating the possibility of an illegal adoption-turned-abduction case from 1989. The words felt hollow. No names were released. No arrests were made. He wanted someone to pay. But the law, like time, had moved on without him. Meanwhile, Ellie, was unraveling. She met Danny and Eli in a small park behind her bookstore. Her eyes were red, her face drawn tight with confusion and disbelief. She didn't hug Eli. She didn't cry. She just sat down on the bench and stared at the harmonica in his hands. "My whole life is a lie," she said quietly. Eli's voice trembled. "No, sweetheart, just a part of it. A part that someone else took from you." She shook her head slowly. "I don't know who I am. I look in the mirror, and I don't know who's looking back." "You're my daughter," Eli said, almost desperately. "That's who you are. You're Ellie Mercer." She flinched at the name, as if it didn't fit. "They told me I was chosen. They told me I was theirs. And now," she trailed off. Danny knelt beside the bench. "It's okay to be angry. It's okay to grieve both stories, both families, both truths." Elena looked away. "I feel like I was stolen twice. First from my real parents, then from myself." Eli didn't argue. He just held the harmonica out to her, both hands shaking. She looked at it, hesitant, then took it slowly. "I used to play this," she asked. Eli smiled softly. "You used to play me to sleep." A long silence stretched between them. "I need time," Elena finally whispered. Eli nodded, though his heart broke again. "Take all the time you need." 2 weeks passed before Elena called. Her voice was tentative over the phone, quiet as a confession. "I think I'm ready to talk." Eli didn't waste a second. He drove back to Idaho, hands trembling on the wheel, the harmonica tucked carefully into the glove compartment like it had become a sacred object. He didn't know what to expect. Another wall, another silence. But he had to go. They met at a quiet lakeside trail, not far from the bookstore. It was overcast again, gray skies mirroring the ache inside them both. Elena stood near a bench, arms crossed, her eyes fixed on the rippling water. When she turned, Eli stopped short. She looked older somehow, not just weary, but sharpened by grief, like someone who had seen too much too quickly. "You came," she said softly. "I would have come yesterday, or next year, or 10 years from now." Eli replied, "Just say the word." She gestured to the bench. They sat. The silence between them felt less like a wall this time, and more like a bridge they hadn't yet crossed. "I don't know where to start," Elena said. "Everything feels like pieces of someone else's life." Eli reached into his worn satchel and pulled out a small folder. Inside, photos, faded soft-edge prints from another lifetime. A picture of Elena at 5, grinning with a missing tooth. A snapshot of her holding the harmonica. A drawing she made in preschool. A crude house with 3 stick figures. One taller, 2 smaller, smiling under a sun. "I've kept all of this," he said, "even when everyone told me to move on." Elena reached out slowly, fingers brushing the photo of herself in the red overalls. "I remember this outfit. I didn't know why." Her voice broke. "I thought it was déjà vu or something stupid." He passed her another item, a tattered napkin with a tiny doodle and the words "To Daddy" written in purple crayon. "You used to leave these all over the house." Eli smiled faintly. "I had them taped to the fridge for years." Elena held it like it was made of glass. "I love them," Eli whispered. "Every single one. You had this laugh, loud and wild. It filled up every corner of the house. And then, one day it was just gone." A tear slipped down her cheek. She didn't wipe it away. "They weren't bad people," she murmured. "They lied, but they loved me. I miss them even though I'm angry." Eli nodded slowly. "Love and truth don't always show up together. Doesn't mean what you felt wasn't real. Doesn't mean what we had wasn't either." She turned to him fully now. Her face was flushed, eyes glassy. "I used to have dreams," she whispered. "A man singing to me, playing music. I thought it was made up. But when I saw you and heard the melody," her voice cracked. "It was you, wasn't it?" Eli couldn't speak. He just nodded. Elena looked down at the harmonica in her hands, then up at him. "I want to remember. I want to know." He exhaled shakily. "We'll take it one memory at a time." She reached for one of the photos, then another. Her fingers trembled. Then, almost too quietly to hear, she said it. "Dad." The word hit Eli like a gust of wind, knocking the breath from his lungs. His face crumpled. His arms reached for her instinctively. This time, she didn't pull away. She leaned into him, sobbing quietly, head pressed to his shoulder, and for the first time in 23 years, he held his daughter. The sky remained gray, but for Eli, the weight he'd carried for decades finally began to lift. It was late spring by the time Elena moved to Oregon. The air smelled like new growth and wood smoke. Rain came and went like a polite guest, and the evenings were long enough for quiet walks. She found a small apartment just 10 minutes from Eli's modest home. Nothing fancy, just a second-floor space above a florist shop. But she liked the creaky stairs and the way the morning light spilled through the windows. They didn't talk every day, and Eli didn't push. He'd learned the hard way that healing moved at its own pace. Still, some evenings he'd find her sitting on his porch swing, a book in her lap, unsure how to start a conversation, but showing up anyway. And Eli? Eli had changed too. He smiled more, laughed now and then. The hardware store had offered him more hours, but he turned them down, choosing instead to tinker again in the shed out back. Radios, clocks, bicycles. Things that had once been broken now hummed and ticked and rolled again under his hands. Then one Saturday, Elena asked, "Will you take me there?" He didn't have to ask where. The old county fairground sat at the edge of town, swallowed by weeds and rust. The main gate sagged, the paint flaking off the once bright welcome sign. Beyond it, the carousel still stood, wooden horses frozen mid-gallop, their eyes dulled with time. They stepped inside slowly, as if crossing a boundary in time. Elena looked around, her breath catching. The air was thick with dust and silence. "This is where it happened?" she asked softly. Eli nodded. "Right over there," he said, pointing to the carousel's edge. "You were holding the harmonica. I turned my back for less than 2 minutes to help my friend fix a power cord." She stepped toward the carousel, fingertips brushing the peeling paint of a once white horse. "I remember. Music," she whispered. "And lights. I was spinning, and everything smelled like popcorn. Then," she stopped. "Then a man in a brown jacket said he'd help me find my mom." Eli's face tightened. She looked back at him, tears welling in her eyes. "I think I wanted to believe him. I was scared, but I don't remember what happened after." "You don't have to remember it all," Eli said. "What matters is you're here now." She nodded, but a heaviness lingered in her shoulders. "I grieve them, you know, the Wellers. I still do." "I know," Eli replied gently. "And you're allowed to. Love isn't a switch." They sat together on the carousel's edge, their legs dangling. Silence stretched again, but this time it felt full rather than empty. After a while, Elena pulled the harmonica from her coat pocket and ran her thumb over the engraving. "Can you play that tune again?" she asked. Eli smiled. "I haven't in years." "Doesn't matter. Play it anyway." He took the harmonica, lifted it to his lips, and began to play. The melody, simple, tender, echoed softly through the broken fairground, a lullaby resurrected. Elena closed her eyes. When she opened them again, there were tears, but also a smile. "Thank you, Dad." He paused, his voice caught his throat. "You're welcome, sweetheart."